Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to Gratitude at Home. I'm coming to you from my home office, which is also called my kitchen. My name is Allison Gampel, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Programs here at York University. And this is the second talk in our Gratitude Speaker Series. And it's a series that connects our newest grads to our absolutely incredible alumni family. So I welcome you all. And I know that grads, this was not the way that you planned to graduate, but you did it. And now you have joined a really wonderful family of alumni. We're a 325,000 person extended family. And we are all so very proud of you, especially graduating in these times. Although we aren't all in the same location right now, it is important that we acknowledge the land that York is on. Many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of the university. York acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. This territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. Last week, York University's president, Dr. Rhonda Lenton, issued an update to the York community, reiterating the university's commitment to stand together against anti-Black racism. Please visit yorku.ca/rights and yorku.ca/mental health for resources to ensure that all of our community members, including new grads and alumni, feel safe and welcome. Some housekeeping before we begin. First off, you'll see at the bottom of your screen that there's a Q&A button. And that Q&A button will help you access any technical help that you need. There's a team that's sort of behind the scenes that's here to help you with any questions that you might have. As well, if you have a question for our panelists, please type your questions there and I will ask it on your behalf to our panelist. If you still have any questions after the talk, please feel free to connect with us. The alumni team can be reached at alumniandfriends.yorku.ca, and we welcome your ideas. York's Career Center is also open to new grads at careers.yorku.ca, and they have some fantastic material. And now for the moment you've been waiting for, and I've been super excited about, I'm honored to introduce to you our alumnus speaker today. Though you might not hear an accent, he joins us all the way from London, England, which makes it later in the evening than for those of you who are here on in Eastern Standard Time. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Tuvia Borok. Tuvia graduated from York's Osgoode Hall Law School. He's an executive director and senior counsel with Goldman Sachs in the UK, and is co-founder and CEO of the P3 Network, which is a UK charity that provides career support to LGBT+ families. He frequently contributes to panel discussions about the need for authenticity and inclusivity in the workplace, and coaches recent graduates and working parents on redefining heteronormative stereotypes. Tuvia, we are supremely honored that you're with us today, and I will, without further ado, hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Amazing, thank you. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to talk to you all today. It's a crazy world out there right now, and with the impact of coronavirus and the hostile shows of hate, racism, homophobia, and discrimination in this world. But despite all of that, and in fact, because of all of that, now more than ever, it's important for each one of you to feel empowered to stand up and unashamedly be your authentic self. I can't possibly ask you to do that without first being unashamedly me. Now, it's not always been easy, and trust me, there are still struggles some days for me, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I will not apologize for who I am. I'm a proud gay immigrant who came from a challenged socioeconomic background, but that hasn't stopped me from achieving what I want in life. So let's make a deal. I will open myself up. I will share openly, candidly, and authentically, but only if you are willing to do the same. not in the sense that you share your story with me, but that you open yourself up and be willing to let my fears, my struggles, and my fight to win resonate with you on some level. I want to help empower you to be your authentic selves in as many aspects of your life as you feel comfortable to. You may not, for example, be out now at university, but that doesn't mean you can't lead an open, authentic life as you enter the workforce. Please, carrying the burden of hiding who you are is just too painful, and it's too distracting from allowing you to shine in whatever career endeavors you want to pursue. So let's get started, and let's try to get to a place of authenticity. Grade 9 was my first introduction to a stark reality. I was surrounded by posters in bathrooms saying you can't catch AIDS from sharing a toilet seat. LGBT role models did not exist. LGBT clubs did not exist. I didn't even know what LGBT meant. I just knew that I was me, and me was different. Ignorance, if I can call it that, was bliss. In grade 10, I had to switch high schools. That year, I learned a new horrible word, faggot. It was a really dark semester in my life. A new school, no friends. I felt like I was the only kid whose parents didn't have a membership at the Richmond Hill Country Club, and I've never cried so much as I did that semester. I luckily managed to switch schools at the beginning of the next year, but the damage was done. Depression in teens does happen. No one ever talks about mental health pressures that children face. I had ambitions of going to med school and becoming a pediatrician. I wanted to help children overcome fear and to help them find happy during tough periods when they were fighting serious illness. As I got to my final years of high school, I realized that chemistry was bringing down my GPA, therefore affecting my chance at a scholarship for university, that dissecting fetal pigs in biology was gross, and that I was squeamish at the sight of blood and needles. I still am today. So clearly, medicine was out. I got accepted to do a life sciences degree at the University of Toronto. I thought I'd finish that, go to law school, and perhaps then marry the two by becoming a lawyer for a hospital. That vision was short-lived, because I then felt I would be on the wrong side of helping people in vulnerable situations. I minored in Russian literature, and there are two quotes that I want to share with you that I carried through my life from the texts that I used to read. The first, if you look for perfection, you'll never be content. And the second, everything will turn out right. The world is built on that. You know what? Those words are very true. Law school was great, despite working full-time as a flight attendant for Air Canada. It taught me some amazing skills around time management, focus, and dedication to getting things done, and how to try to manage jet lag. I excitedly graduated in the top 10% of my class. Juggling multiple spinning plates is something I've now been doing for a very long time. Are you ready for a secret? I felt I was a sellout. Osgoode was heavily focused on constitutional law issues and Aboriginal rights, but I ended up doing corporate law. How, you ask? Well, I volunteered with our legal aid clinic at a satellite clinic at the 519 LGBT Community Center. The satellite clinic provided wills and powers of attorney advice for those who had AIDS, not HIV. To my knowledge, I was the only volunteer at the clinic who identified as LGBT. It was emotional. I would go in on Saturdays and I would be surrounded by tears, by fears, and by a beaten spirit to fight. To be surrounded by death in your early 20s when you've just come out and you've been brainwashed that being gay means dying of AIDS, it was a lot. I'm the most happy-go-lucky person that there is, but how do you sit there and smile and see the good as you help people prepare for death and a life that's been cut short? So I talk through options and take instructions on a Saturday, then do all the drafting during the week, and I would have the person meet me the following weekend to sign their will and powers of attorney. I spent one particular emotional Saturday with a young man in his late 30s. The 2 hours we spent were filled with tears, me trying to hide mine, but his coming out quite clearly. He was crying over how he was going to speak to his mother and his sister about being named powers of attorney, when in fact he'd not spoken to them in years, and they didn't even know who he truly was, or that he was sick. I don't know what he was feeling, but I sensed that there was shame in admitting who he was, and there was a societal stigma around being gay, which weighed quite heavy on both of us. The other thing I remember is all of the I love yous that his boyfriend kept saying to him. The Wednesday following, I had a message at Osgood. It was from the boyfriend. I called him back to be met with a distraught question of, what do I do now? That young man passed away 3 days before he could sign his will. His wishes were not legally binding, and I don't know if he ever got to reconcile with his family. I couldn't deal with it emotionally, and I never returned to the clinic. I think it was one of the only times in my life where I quit something. But it scared me. I decided at that time that I did not want to practice any law that impacted individual people. It was all too emotional for me. So when the opportunity arose for me to go to work for one of the top corporate law firms on Bay Street, I jumped at the opportunity. Not only did it mean that I wouldn't have to deal with the emotional struggles of dealing with people's lives, but for someone who was juggling law school and a full-time job, I finally had a financial out. It's funny how being so directly involved in people's lives scared me, and I ran from having an impact. Now, it's all about the individual lives that I can help, but we'll get to that in a bit. Given the stats of how few are out at universities today, it's important, I think, that I share my coming out story with you. I've not always been as comfortable with who I am as I am now. You have to remember that being gay 25 years ago, when I started exploring whether I could start on my coming out journey, meant becoming infected with AIDS and dying. It meant dying alone because gay people didn't find love and didn't have relationships. And it meant accepting being called a fairy and a faggot. LGBT role models did not exist. LGBT clubs did not exist. And LGBT characters showed a stereotype that is not reflective of what the LGBT community can be all about. Coming out did not come with freedom. It actually brought an overarching sense of loss for me. Grieving. I remember a lot of tears. Tears when, after years of struggling with it, I finally admitted to myself that my life was going to be different because I was different. And that difference meant that I would never be able to live the life I had envisioned for myself. There were going to be no family, no kids, and no house with a white picket fence. In the late 90s, LGBT parenting was not legal. And even if it was, I was not going to put a child through the heartache and pain of being bullied for my own sexuality. How could that be fair to a child? I first told one of my high school besties. It was a Saturday night, we were at her house, and we just watched my best friend's wedding. I know, rather cliche. Start the first round of tears for that night. I don't remember much about the words that were said, but it involved a giant hug, and then I always knew. Great, thank you world for knowing before me. I drove home, and I walked into my parents' room at about 1:30 a.m. I woke my mother, and I told her that we needed to speak urgently. I was a man on a mission. Sat cross-legged on my bed, second round of tears flowing, I came out to my mom. She hugged me, she told me that she loved me, and she cried with me. Then she too told me that she had always suspected. What a double whammy, right? Did everyone know before me? I realized that I am one of the lucky ones, though. I have a great coming out story of support. But while the support was there from my immediate family, I did not support myself. And if I couldn't be good with it, how could I ever expect anyone else to be? I told myself that I couldn't possibly be gay. What does that even mean, being gay? Well, being gay in 1997 meant nothing about being unashamedly me. To me, it meant a hidden world, a dedicated neighborhood where once I crossed a certain intersection, I was free to express myself, a world of excitement and a world of fear. There was a certain dichotomy between the safety of the gay village in downtown Toronto and the fear and the reality of being bullied, being discriminated against, and my panic of even touching another man. The move to Bay Street was predicated on a host of stressful interviews. I wasn't out in my interviews, and my CV or cover letter didn't give anything away. But whether I liked it or not, my voice, my mannerisms, they maybe led to some assumptions about me. I remember that I excitingly was one of a handful of Canadian students to get an interview at a very prestigious American law firm. Clearly my CV and cover letter, my grades, the various publications and law journals, It all made me a very viable candidate. I mean, I got an interview, and I was so excited. That interview was the first time that I faced discrimination. Here I sat across from two white straight men, one partner and one associate, and all they wanted were travel tips given that I was a flight attendant. Despite trying to own the interview and focus on what I could bring to the firm, about 15 minutes in, I was told, people like you won't be successful in our firm. You may want to stick to what you know best and fly the friendly skies. I held it together for maybe another 5 minutes and then excused myself holding back tears. I ran to the bathroom and I cried. I was beaten right there and then. I didn't go to my next 2 interviews. I didn't have any strength left. And I didn't believe in myself. My sexuality was now a handicap, and I didn't know how to handle that. Worry not, though. I ended up with an amazing firm on Bay Street. I didn't mind the long hours, the social engagements with friends that I missed because of work. I knew that I couldn't climb the ladder and achieve my goals without putting in the hard work, working harder than others, standing out, proving to others and to myself. That's when I learned the true power of me. I had potential, and I was not afraid to shine. Where the confidence came from still baffles me. Do you want to know something? To this day, I have imposter syndrome. I have this self-doubt and these fears that constantly run through my head. I do wonder if it'll ever pass. I wouldn't say that I was in the closet on Bay Street, but I wasn't out either. My immediate peer group knew, but that's about it. I guess I thought maybe it doesn't matter, that there isn't really a place for it in the corporate world. I mean, I only knew 2 other LGBT people in a firm of hundreds. I kind of lived segregated lives. There was corporate Tuvia, and there was real Tuvia. That's sad, right? That I lived my life like I'm some Barbie doll on a shelf. You know what I mean? There's Beach Barbie and Party Barbie and CEO Barbie. I don't know so much that I was told explicitly that I had to hide myself, but I do know that no one spoke about it, and there were no role models for me to look at. I couldn't really say, look, they've achieved something despite being gay, and so can I. Despite being gay. What a simply horrible thought. But that's what it was. Somehow being gay meant that I was viewed as having different abilities to others. How screwed up is that? How could that have ever been right? But I mean, sadly, we still see it in having to fight to teach girls and women that they can do anything men can do, and that those who are visible minorities can achieve what everyone else can. Really? It's 2020 and people still feel that being different stands in their way? That if they can't be a stereotypical corporate Barbie doll in looks and in experience, that they are somehow handicapped? I make it my mission daily to combat that. As a leader, I have learned that my best talent is the talent that is diverse. And diversity can mean a whole lot of different things. It's about diversity of thought and diversity of perspective. Ultimately, I want a team of authentic individuals. Barbie dolls, as perfect as they might seem, are not the secret to success in business. Look, I hope I know what I'm talking about. I mean, I run a team of lawyers across Europe for a huge investment bank. The success of my team is that they have the space to be them, to shine bright as individuals. And it's their ability to be them that got them hired, that made them stand out. CVs, cover letters, and interviews can be really boring when I'm told what people think I want to hear. Everyone just blurs into one. I want to see the individual who's true to themselves, because that is the future leader that I want to nurture. After Bay Street, I did a graduate degree at Oxford. Oxford felt like an academic bubble disconnected from the rest of the world. I quickly learned that I needed to regurgitate the conclusions of my professors rather than having my own view that challenged the status quo. I learned to play the game, but it meant I disconnected from what the institution of learning could offer. It probably was a powerful learning point in my life, though, because little did I know that years down the line, I would pride myself on pushing the status quo, pushing boundaries, and with determination professing my own views to challenge a world that simply wasn't getting it right. It's one of the reasons that when I look at hiring or I mentor graduates, I do not believe that someone coming from the right school means that they are the best talent. It's about the person. It's about their drive, the fire in their belly. not about the name of the school that they graduated from. And I have learned that people who aren't willing to stand out as individuals and be authentically themselves tend not to shine as bright. Their fire is simply dampened. I rowed at Oxford. No matter the weather, we were out on the water by 6 a.m. and I'd get back so tired that I often went back to bed rather than going to my morning lectures. My sexuality confused my crew. As I was told by the vice captain of the boat, "How can you be gay? You erg faster and are stronger than most of the crew." And despite coming out to the coach, I was told that I still had to go on weekly crew dates between male and female crews. The heteronormative class system that was imposed was so archaic. A first boat crew could never go on a date with a second boat crew, and heaven forbid I didn't participate like one of the lads. In hindsight, I'm upset with myself for going along with it, but such is the power of wanting to belong. I've only returned to Oxford once in the past 15 years. I think I'm ashamed that I let myself down. I'm more than that now, and going back is a reminder that I wasn't true to myself. I know I've done well, but I do wonder how differently my life would have been if I'd stood up a bit more as me. When I re-entered the workforce, I was nearly forced back into the closet, not just because the law and societal norms required it, but because my leaders in management, those that were responsible for my promotion and financial remuneration, softly demanded it. Welcome to Moscow. I'd been working in London and focused on emerging markets. Russia was my market. When one of my biggest clients opened an office in Moscow, it was my opportunity to propel my career. It was rather exciting, until I was told by management that it's best not to discuss my life in the office. But I shouldn't worry. I can be totally out on weekends at special dinner parties and other gatherings. But it was made very clear that there was no place for it in the office. That same night, I was taken out, wined and dined, to be convinced to accept a 2-year assignment. Late at night at some hip bar, sat on a sofa, one of my future colleagues, the stereotype of a Russian model, tall, long, straight blonde hair that went down her whole back, gorgeous red lipstick, came and sat next to me and in Russian said, "I've been told I should help do whatever it takes to convince you. I've told them all that they're barking up the wrong tree, that that'll never work. Am I right?" Right then and there, I outed myself. My first admission. There was no going back in the closet. The next morning in the senior partner's office, I said I'd accept the assignment, but on the condition that I was going to put a picture of me and my boyfriend on my desk, and I was not going to not talk about my gay life. And that if the team weren't okay with that, then I simply wasn't coming. Because making me hide that means we couldn't ever be a team. I did it. I was finally going to break the cycle. I mean, I could have maybe chosen a safer environment to do it in, not one where being gay was practically illegal. But I finally found my voice. I was going to be the change that I wanted to see in the world. I've never gone back in the closet since, and my career, it's only continued to soar. As the title of the talk suggests today, I am all about authenticity, and I want to help create a world where individuals feel safe and powerful in being who they are. When you want something bad enough, you make it happen. For years, I've been a big advocate for LGBT inclusion. I continue to be. So it's important to me to make the world the place that it should be. It's not about dreaming big. It's about what's just right. Some 25 years after I came out, when it comes to attitudes about sexuality, the world has not shifted that much. More than 50 years post the Stonewall riots, LGBT rights may have legally come a long way, but attitudes towards the community have certainly gotten worse. In the past few months alone, we are seeing legal rights for members of the LGBT community removed from across the US and parts of Europe. It's sad. I get to speak to a lot of university students about what an out career looks like. They are just as scared, and some even ashamed, as I was in 1996. Statistics show that between 48 to 51% of graduates go back into the closet as they enter the workforce. How can that be right? So my fight to help the community simply won't stop. How do I do that? How have I become an agent of change? Well, many ways. But they all involve standing up, being true to me, and telling my story. And then giving others the space to own their own narratives. Yes, I run a charity. Yes, I've won lots of awards. But everyone can be an agent of change. It's about finding your voice and using it. Remember, each of you has the power. to change people's lives. I don't believe in supporting diversity can be actually done in just a silo. If you have a chance to watch my TED Talk, you'll see what I mean. That's why I'm vocal about diversity and authenticity broadly, not just for one community. Ultimately, it's about people being able to be themselves, whoever they are, without the need to be put in a box. That is what allowing people to be unashamedly themselves truly means. Look, I could go on, but I want to get time to engage with all of you directly. I know it's tough out there right now with so many horrible acts of hatred, racism, and homophobia going on in the world. That's the world you're entering as you enter the workforce. But please remain hopeful. Each of you has the power to influence, to create a safe and accepting space, to educate yourselves, to educate others, to help break down the biases and the misconceptions, and most importantly, to help break the cycle. Part of breaking the cycle is being true to who you are, to loving yourself, and to letting yourself shine as unashamedly you. Long gone are the days when I let the words fairy or faggot define me. I am unashamedly me, and life as unashamedly me is awesome. There is no opportunity that isn't open to me. I just need to have the fire in the belly to go for it. Let me leave you with one final thought, please. It's never too late to be whatever you want to be. I hope you have a life that you're all proud of. And if you're not, I hope you find the strength to start over. You deserve that. You owe it to yourself. And for all it's worth, I believe that you can do it.
I have to catch my breath before I'm able to adequately, and I don't think I'll sort of do justice in responding and thanking you, Tuvia, from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of our grads that are here for being willing to share your story and to really share what you've had to sort of work through and your evolution with us here this afternoon. So thank you so very much. It is so appreciated.
No, thank you. Look, thank you for having me. And I think I wish there were more opportunities like this when I was in school. Nobody stepped forward to do this. So if I've managed to even help just one person today, then I've done good today.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you. And I see some messages coming in from the crowd that's watching that are thanking you and really sort of encouraging you and happy that you've been with us. So to our audience here, if you have questions, please at this point type them into the Q&A area and we will try to get to them. Also have a think about what element of what you just heard has been meaningful to you, and please share with us your thoughts in the Q&A as well. That really helps us as we look to finding speakers, finding alumni, and sharing stories that will resonate with you. So so you can think about that over the next 20 minutes that we're going to be chatting. We'll ask some questions that we've prepared and some questions that have come in advance from some of our attendees, and then we'll take it from there. So so audience, type in your questions and type in your thoughts into the Q&A. So let's start with our first question. And it's sort of a general one. It comes from, and I apologize if I'm messing up anyone's name, but it comes from June. So hi, June, if you're there. Lovely to hear from you. And June asks, any advice on how to succeed after graduation? Big question. What do you think about that?
It's $1 million question. Look, I think the biggest thing is no matter where you are in the stage of your career, it's don't be afraid to speak up. I think businesses now, it's all about having people that have a view and have an opinion. Yes, there are certain ways that are more appropriate to present it than others, but long gone are the days where you're supposed to just sit somewhere off in the back and not have a perspective. So find your way, find your mentors, and certainly get engaged and involved.
Absolutely, that's some great advice. A question coming in from Nicole is, how do you deal with people in the workplace who are overt in their homophobic, racist, sexism views. So people that are making comments, what do you do in those situations?
Look, I think first and foremost, you need to make sure that you feel safe, right? And I'm hoping that when you are in the workforce, you are working for an employer that has made it very clear that they have a zero tolerance policy for making people feel uncomfortable. Thereafter, it's a question of what you feel comfortable with. It may be that you want to turn around and just say, look, I'm sorry, I think that's not an appropriate comment. You don't necessarily need to out yourself in that situation, but you then make people realize that they need to check themselves and maybe that's not okay. Alternatively, you go and you speak to mentors or to buddies or whatever the system is, and you share your concerns and you have someone else go and make a comment. But at no point should you ever sit there in silence, because I don't know any organization these days that would actually go ahead and say that that's okay.
Thank you for that. You know, a lot of our grads are looking for work in difficult times and in unprecedented times. You've done a lot of hiring in your career. What would be your advice for how to stand out in an interview?
So the standing out is really about being the individual. As I said, look, I sometimes get hundreds of CVs and cover letters to look at even after they've gone through a screen. And I read them and individuals, they do all of the wonderful stereotypical things, right? They get told and they show that they were head of certain student bodies, that they had all these other volunteer efforts and all these other things. That doesn't necessarily make you stand out. If you are showing me that you can do what everyone else can do, you know, it's not memorable for me. What really matters is to show the individual. So figure out what makes you you. And if it is that you're going to sell yourself on the fact that you are a great team player or that you are able to work well independently or your time management skills or things of the sort, those are the buzzwords that absolutely everyone's going to use. That's not going to make you unique. So figure out what your USP is, what your unique selling point is, and just go for it.
That's some great advice, and I know that for a lot of young people, that actually knowing what that is can be challenging. So how do you, as an add-on, how do you actually figure out what your unique selling proposition is? I mean, I'm old and I don't know what mine is.
Look, I think the biggest exercise I kind of take with it, and it's almost similar to what folks sometimes talk about being an elevator sales pitch. Think about what the three things are that you want people to remember you by, right? What are the three messages? So, if someone would say, oh, I met Allison today, what are the three things that you would want someone to go, oh, Allison, she's this, she's that, and something else? Figure those things out. And it takes a lot of work, right? But it is your brand. And you have to think about yourself as a brand. And if you're still not sure how to do the exercise, what I suggest you do is think of an organization like McDonald's, and three words or terms will immediately come to mind. Then think of something like Apple. Think about Air Canada. Whatever it is, you will immediately have words or thoughts that come to mind. You then need to figure out what are those words and thoughts that you want that are going to be the ones that you leave people an impression with.
That's some really helpful practical advice. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. A question that's coming in, and some of our participants are preferring to remain anonymous, so I can't say hello to anyone, but thank you to those of you who are being brave enough to send in questions, and please feel free. I don't have to say hello to you, but we really appreciate the questions coming in. So one question that came in, it says, you mentioned that when you want something badly, you'll make it happen. How do you, and the person said, I just wonder how to keep on that to allow yourself to continue to grow. How do you hold on to that desire?
Look, I think you need to figure out what it is that you're aiming for. And if you think it's going to be a road that's clearly paved and that you're not going to have any bumps, you're not going to stay committed to it. Right? You need to be prepared for those challenges. and then you need to get up and keep going. One of the things is I have juniors, I have seniors as well in my team. When I suggest something and they say, okay, I will try, I turn around and go, that's not a commitment, right? Telling me you're going to try is like telling me, oh, I'm going to try to get up to train with you at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not telling me you're actually going to do it. So either you say, yes, I am going to do something, or no, you're not going to do something. But this try is a halfway point. So, figure out what it is that you are passionate about or what you want to strive for. And then sticking to it means that you will do everything that it takes to do it. And you'll be prepared to get knocked one way and the other. It's going to be challenging, but it's still having that determination to stand up and keep going.
Yeah. And that can be tough, but important. And for our graduates, I think who finished their university experience amidst COVID-19 and all of the pivoting and challenges that's required, from so many different standpoints. I think really it's important to remember that strength and resilience has been built, right? And that education that's happened at York. And a lot of our students are working and are managing sort of a lot of demands. It's prepared you for those next steps.
I think a lot of graduates worry right now, or anyone entering the workforce, that in a COVID environment with companies cutting back and whatnot, how are they going to find employment, right? The times are more challenging. I turn it on its head and think about it differently, right? Through COVID, businesses have had to adjust and adapt in ways that they never thought they were going to operate businesses. So anything goes right now. And the businesses that are successful are the ones that are flexible and fluid enough to talk to their people, to engage with their people, and to come up with the creative ways to be able to respond. So if there's ever a time when you need fresh talent and fresh perspective, it is now. So everyone entering the workforce, you don't come with the mindset of those businesses having been there for 5, 10, 15, however many years. You've not been acclimatized to that. You are coming with a breath of fresh air, and you should use that to your advantage, because a lot of businesses need that right now to make sure that they stay relevant.
Right. That's so true. And some of the questions that I'm seeing coming from our audience are around how do you actually communicate that? So we have, a great question from Olivia, and thank you to Olivia for asking this. What makes a resume or cover letter stand out and make the employer want to contact you? So you've identified your unique selling proposition. How do you then put it into a resume and cover letter? And I mean, I'll add on, is the resume and cover letter even the right place to put that in, or is there more that we should be doing?
Look, I think there's a couple of approaches. I know a lot of organizations now do online type of application systems, so you don't always get the ability to express yourself as much as you want to, and there's a whole bunch of AI that then operates to cut through that. To the extent you do have an ability, read back what you've actually written and think about whether it sounds interesting to somebody who's looking through hundreds of cover letters and CVs. If you're bored by what you wrote, then trust me, I or somebody else reading it is going to get bored by it as well, right? If you've done something really, really cool, you've approached a certain charity, or you've had something unique in your life that you feel has shaped you, and you can figure out what the transferable skills there are, and I can tell you now there's a transferable skill that you can take into the business world from any experience that you've had. That is what makes you more interesting. It makes you memorable. And so don't shy away from selling that and actually sharing it. I'm not saying make it everything, because there are certain buzzwords and other skills that organizations want to see, but make yourself be different because of your experiences. So I love those experiences, and I think you need to propel yourself through them. I think the other thing that's very important is networking. I can't tell you enough how important networking events are. I think a lot of students don't appreciate the power of the conversations that they have. I know that I can tell you right now, I have been at networking events where I have had students say things that perhaps were not best placed and were a little bit inappropriate, or certainly, got my back up. And if that's the case, I will call our HR teams, I will share the names, and I will turn around and say, if this person, applies, we blacklist them, right? They will not, they have a mark on their name. But at the same time, there are some conversations with people just leave me just wowed. And I think that is somebody that we really need to spend some time with. And I will do the opposite. And I will place the call and say, look, if this person applies, and then that application will get fast-tracked because we think of that person differently because somebody has already taken a view on them. So don't ever underestimate the conversations that you have when you have the ability to network and ask questions.
And so we talked about this a little bit for those of us who are on the panel on Tuesday, but how would you recommend doing networking in a virtual world if our grads are looking for work but not able to physically go to a networking event? What advice would you have for them?
Look, I have people reach out to me through LinkedIn, for example, right? And some people actually write a message to me that engages me, that makes me want to connect back with them, right? And others, it is so generic that it's so clear that they haven't taken the effort to really want to connect with me as if we were having a real conversation. Now, it might be really taboo, but the way I think of interviews and I think of networking is, think of it almost like a blind date, right? You're going to want to go and you're going to want to leave a great impression, right? Think about the efforts that you make when you go on a first date. You're excited about it. You want to present yourself really well. You want to leave people wanting more to be able to have a follow-on call and to continue the conversation, right? Networking and interviews are no different, right? You want the other person to be hungry to go, oh my God, that was really, really great and exciting. I want to hear more from Alison. I'd love to understand why Alison's done that. Like, why can't we get Alison in for some more conversations, right? That is the way you need to think about it. I realize it's probably not the way you give career advice at York, but if you come to it with that mindset, I'm hoping that'll help people understand the type of impression that they need to leave, because you yourself will know, anyone that's gone on a date, you know those dates that you go and you get there and you think, oh God, what a waste of my time. I just want this over. That is not the impression you ever want to leave in trying to reach out to someone virtually, or if you've got the ability to connect with them via Zoom or otherwise.
Right. And I think, as you think about, I really like the blind date analogy, and it really reminds me of the importance of fit, and that, our York grads are amazing. And, to remember, as we're talking about authenticity, that if they go to an interview or they have an interaction with someone that's not feeling right for them, or where they don't feel compatible, that, how should they feel if they're just getting sort of, not necessarily something overt has happened, but they just don't like the culture, they don't like the company, they don't like the individual? What advice do you have then?
That's okay. I don't know why that's a bad thing, right? Just like not every company is going to think you're right for them, you're not going to think every company is right for you. And that's okay. If you were to tell me that you go and you think every company is right for you, I'd say there's something wrong, and you've not really assessed and understood the values or the culture or the vibe that you've received from the people that you've met, and that you really understand where you think you're going to excel being you. So you want to make sure any interview is actually two ways. So don't ever sit there and think that the power is all in the employer or the potential employer. It is as much you interviewing them as they are interviewing you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some questions that are coming in about further education, grad school, things like that. And I'm assuming that sort of a similar philosophy would apply to, choosing a grad school, assessing if it's the right one for you, and sort of getting admitted to those programs, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Okay. Great. So I want to just, change the focus a little bit and take a question that's come from Donna. Donna, thank you so much for your question. And I'll read it to you. It's a really great question. Donna says, hi, Tuvia. Thank you for your insight. Whilst not gay, I understand your interview experience. As a Black British woman with a British name, how do you get past the interviewer looking past you, even at the greeting stage when they come out to meet you? I feel put off immediately and genuinely unable to truly express myself. Thoughts?
right? So let me start with this. With a name like Tuvia, everyone expects a female, all right? So anytime, someone will come out and say Tuvia, and I'll go, yes, right here. They look at me and they're shocked, right? So I get it. I get this view on what name association could possibly be. The biggest skill that I tell people, and if I can take a few minutes to give you some pearls of wisdom, so to speak, is I want you to do an exercise to learn that you take control of the interview, okay? And what that means is once you figure out your USP, okay, the three things, and I always say it should be three, the three messages that you want to leave somebody with, you need to then figure out something akin to what others call an elevator sales pitch. And I would never do it. It should never be longer than 45 to 60 seconds, okay? And you start the conversation. You figure out what those three messages are that you want to leave off, so that the minute you meet someone, Donna, you shake their hands and you go, hi, I'm Donna, and you go right into it. Doesn't matter to me if someone thinks it's a run-on sentence or what. You know that if nothing else, you've got their attention for 45 seconds, 60 seconds to get your 3 points out. And you'd be amazed at how many people then go, oh, wow, you've said something to them that they want to pick up on. And they will then engage with you on what you told them, rather than sitting there with some box, list of questions that every interviewer has to go through. So please take that as an opportunity to turn around and go, look, they might have given me an off vibe. I'm going to show them that I'm actually going to step up and I'm going to take ownership for my interview. At the end of the day, this is your job. If you want it, you take charge and you make it happen. I'm not suggesting it's easy, right? But you are just going to have to tough it up through that, because I can assure you, you're going to run into clients, you're going to run into colleagues, you're going to run into a whole host of people that you're just not going to like, and you're going to have difficult challenges with. This is just going to sadly be the first of many. So learn to just take charge and go past it.
Really true. So I'm going to take a couple more questions before we have to wrap up. And I think that this next question that comes from Carrie really builds on what you've just talked about. And I can certainly relate to it. So Carrie says, sometimes in the hustle and bustle of each day, I barely forget who I am, or I can barely remember who I am. Can you suggest any day-to-day habits, practices, or activities that can help each of us refocus and remind ourselves of who we are and how we can stay authentic to who we are?
So I believe in affirmations, and I write affirmations every night. So some people call it journaling. You can do whatever you want, but I know that I take time every night, for 5 minutes, which we can all find, to write whatever affirmations and whatever is important to me from a motivational goals perspective. And I repeat those same ones the next morning. It's the first thing that I do. So I know that if nothing else, I end my day setting my mindset for where I'd like it to be, and I start the next day with that same mindset. The other thing that I highly, highly recommend is everyone needs to find their power song. And what I mean by a power song is I want you to go figure out that one song that always puts you in a good mood, that makes you feel confident, that makes you forget whatever troubles there are. It might be a song that you sing, in the shower, whatever it is, find your song, okay? And these songs change throughout your life and different periods. What I want you to then do is take that song and listen to it on repeat, okay? When you're going to your interview, you're going to your big meeting, you're going on to a call, whatever it is, you listen to that song on repeat, because that's the song that disconnects you from the rest of the world and peps you up. If you've just had a bad situation or something stressful, you go to your song. I recommend to most people that they will listen to their song 12 to 15 times a day. I ask you to do it for 2 weeks. Try it out for 2 weeks. Every single day, just listen to your song throughout the day. And I promise you that after that, you will probably stick to this power song concept, because it will actually start. It's not the meditation that you were speaking about, Carrie, but it will sometimes help refocus you and make you feel stronger in that particular moment.
I love that idea, and now have to make the difficult choice of what my power song will be. Um, and I don't know about you, but I had a really tough morning with my kids trying to homeschool these, emerging tweens was a little bit of a nightmare this morning. And so I'm going to pass on that advice and encourage them to find their power songs and see if that can help them.
Yeah.
And that leads to what might be one of our last questions, which is actually about children and future generations. And the question is anonymous, so I'll read it. It says, you mentioned the fear you had while growing up about having children and the potential that they would be bullied. The question is, do you have children? If so, how have their experiences been with their peers?
So I do. I'm a single parent. I have a 9.5-year-old son, and I apologize. I think you may have heard some background noise as he was grabbing food. He has been bullied. He got bullied for having a gay parent on the playground. It's not always been easy. When he was younger, I had to explain to him that he couldn't have play dates with certain kids that he loved playing with because the parents did not agree with my lifestyle choice. So, we have faced some challenging conversations. He's the biggest, I think, diversity advocate there is. Maybe that's because I do so much of it, so he's probably diversityed out. But he's become his own, pioneer, and has found his own sense of self, which has been brilliant. So we all face some form of adversity, right? We all get bullied for something as kids, whether you're fat, you wear glasses, the way your hair is, whatever it is. Every child gets bullied for something, and we all have. He got bullied, unfortunately, because it was because of me. And to be honest with you, if that's his thing, that no one had anything to pick on, that was specific to him, that's not a bad thing.
Thank you for that. So the question coming in is, do you want to share with the audience what your power song is?
No, power songs are private. So you never share your power song, I should have said. What I can tell you is I can tell you what my first ever power song was. And it was These Boots Were Made for Walking by Nancy Sinatra. So working on Bay Street and being in the office at 3 a.m, working on deals, that song really worked wonders sometimes to let me out. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so at this point, I think we are sort of running out of time. So we will need to wrap it up. Are there any thoughts that you'd like to leave our grads with?
Look, I think the biggest one is celebrate who you are. I know it feels really, really tough right now. You maybe get a lot of messages from people, that corporates only pay lip service and you need to fit a certain stereotype. And you sometimes think that you know what they want. Really push against the grain, please, because you're never going to do yourselves any favors if you end up working in an organization where you feel you can't be you 100%. I know that's maybe hard to understand right now. You want a job, there's the economic impacts, you want to start your careers, but you also want to set yourself up for success, right? And to be able to be in a good headspace to allow yourself to succeed. So please, I'm not paying lip service to this. I hope, having heard my story today, you realize I've lived and breathed this. I know what being authentic looks like in the workplace and how challenging that can be. But just to celebrate it, because celebrating it is what will stand out on your CV and in your interviews, like a first date, because you will be true and you will give off that energy that'll make somebody want to continue to connect with you.
Right, that's absolutely true. And it's interesting. I've now worked at York University for, I think it's almost 17 years. And I didn't go to York, and I thought I'd be there for a year or two. But the reason I can't seem to leave York is because of our students. Our students and our grads are just so wonderful. And, I used to be in the career development world, and all of our employers would say, I just wish your grads knew how awesome they are, right? And could feel comfortable to express that. So I've heard that over the decades from employers, and I've lived that in interacting with, our grads, and certainly, alumni like you, Tuvia, who have taken the time to be with us, when running a huge company and charity and being a dad and all of that. So on that note, I would really like to thank you. But before I do that, I'd like to ask our audience, if you don't mind, please, type in for us what's been meaningful, what's been helpful from this session. That really, really helps us with our events moving forward, and helps us with how we can tailor them to your needs. And Tuvia, on behalf of the alumni team and on behalf of the class of 2020, thank you so much. As a token of our appreciation, since we can't see each other, and even if we could, you're across the ocean, we've made a donation in your honor to York's emergency COVID-19 student relief fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a final message to anyone who's on that. If I know there were a bunch of questions that we couldn't take. I'm fairly easily found on LinkedIn. There aren't others with my name. So if folks want to reach out, please do. Please remember, it might be a great test for you to make your opening message to me really stand out, really so that we can engage. But I am here. So if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and let me see what I can do for you bilaterally.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And to our alumni community who are here, feel free, if you like this, you want to hear more from us, we're on social. Feel free to follow us on Insta and Twitter at URQ Alumni. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, so feel free to visit us there. Last but not least, if you want to go old school, you can email us at alumni.urq.ca. Otherwise, this will conclude today, but next week we've got the third installment of our GRADitude series that's happening on June 16th at 2 p.m. And it's titled Then and Now, the First Steps to Your Career. And that one's going to be a little bit different in that we're going to feature 5 alum who are doing different things and have had different experiences. And they'll be able to share with you a little bit about what it was like for them to graduate and begin their journey. So hopefully you'll find yourself somewhere in their stories. So we hope to see you there. So last but not least, again, thank you, Tuvia. Congratulations to the class of 2020. And we wish you all good health and wellness.